where best friends and next-door neighbors, Willow and Lillian, spill the tea on murder, mysteries, and other things that go bump in the night. So get your favorite teacup ready, and let's get into it. Welcome to Cruelty Podcast. This is Lillian, and with me is Willow.
Hello.
And we both almost died.
No, we didn't.
Well, from emotional trauma.
Oh, yeah. I almost fainted, goated.
You almost fainted. I got dizzy.
Yeah.
So we were preparing to record.
You're literally about to hit.
Literally about to hit record. And I hear my precious angel bunny, my dog, screaming.
If you don't know, she's a tiny Pomeranian. And
she
she's
weighs
a
like
precious
4
baby.
pounds. Yeah. And I know somebody had taken her outside. So my first thought was, oh my God, a mountain lion is eating my baby. And possibly my other baby, because I knew a child had taken the dog out. So I flew up. You know what happened?
Because we have mountain lions. I think we just said that in the Patreon.
I've said it on the regular podcast too, on Maris Monday.
Okay.
Yeah. So what really happened was Val, a middle child, took Bunny out and tripped. And the dog was so upset that Val fell down. She just started screaming. Everything's fine.
Nothing happened to the dog. The dog just witnessed something.
It was just like, I am so upset. But now it's funny, but I'm not over it. And Willow was about to call the police.
I literally grabbed my phone to call 911.
I need to speak to the police and the president. My dog is upset.
FBI, please.
Someone, a SWAT team. But yeah, I hope y'all's evening is less.
My heart's just racing right now. I feel like I could run a mile. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
this won't be any better.
No, this episode is 2 cases in one, and it is very, very gruesome. So trigger warnings are for blood and gore, dismemberment, description of wounds, animal cruelty, bullying, and very gross sexual stuff that I'm gonna skim over most of it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
pull up your puppies and kittens on Pinterest.
Yeah. This is a no eating episode, and this is gonna be a longer episode. So, yeah. So we're gonna be starting out with these are both child murderers in Japan, the Nevada Tan case and the Kobe murders. We're going to start with the Kobe murders. They were later dubbed the Kobe child murders, taking place in Kobe, Japan in 1997, where a 14-year-old boy reportedly committed several different murders. His name, because he was a child, was not necessarily released to the public. He was reported into the media later on as several different names, starting, of course, with Boy A, which is very traditional for Japanese cases considering minors. So it's either going to be Boy A or Boy Gore, Girl A, or, if there's multiple offenders, then it would be, Boy B, Boy C, that kind of thing. So he later dubbed himself in a letter to the media Sakibara Sato, but his real name is Azuma Shinichiro. But since the papers and the media all refer to him as Sakibara, that's what I'm going to refer to him in this episode as. He grew up having a relatively normal upbringing, at least as far as what little has been said or insinuated in the media. We really don't know too much about, personal details. But he lived at home with his mother, his father, his 2 brothers, and his grandmother. Sakibara was a very quiet kid. He was reportedly always in his head. The only person he really thought actually understood him was his grandmother, and she was his favorite, and she doted on him so much. Even though she was well aware of the dark and twisted things that he was thinking about all day, she was basically the only one he would actually open up to about these thoughts that he had, and she never really held them against him.
So she was non-judgmental.
She loved him anyways. And I'm sure she thought that maybe these things that he was thinking about would be eventually something that he grew out of.
Yeah.
He was fairly young at this point. maybe he just needed attention and, he was attention seeking. Sakibara was plagued with these thoughts. It was taking over him. They were so dark and so fucked up that he thought his grandmother was the only one who would ever love him despite what was going on with him. He knew that if anyone else knew what he was thinking about all day, they'd reject him. They would disown him. They would send him off to a psych ward or something. So he bottled it up, and he spent as much time as he could with his comfort person as possible until she died. And he was very young when she died.
I bet that was devastating for him, though.
It was monumentally devastating.
Because that was the only person in the world that knew him.
This is like downward spiral character development, astronomically devastating to him. Absolutely. So yeah, he obviously took this very hard. She was his person. Like, now who does he have? His parents were strict and they never were fully able to understand him, and therefore he thought they could never truly love him. The more he fixated on his grandmother's passing, the more he began to question life and specifically death. Still in elementary school, he started to stockpile weapons, and he would carry knives and what he called spinning scissors with him, which I couldn't really figure out what he meant by that. I assumed maybe either like throwing star or a butterfly knife. But either way, he really liked the feeling of having weapons on him. It was like some sort of morbid protection for him. He also started to go more inside his own mind and furthermore isolate himself. He created a place in his mind that he could go where he felt like home. He felt like he was the only one in the world who could do this, and that this place was the only place that he could actually feel safe. He said in his journal, quote, "I am a slug, having no shell to protect me, and therefore I cannot become a snail. So I have to build my shell inside my body to protect myself. As soon as I am aware of danger, I will hide into that shell."
Wow, really introspective.
For elementary.
That's really...
Isn't that interesting?
I find in researching these cases with murderers who are children, they hoard weapons, they collect them and are fascinated with them, and they also have these really intricate inner worlds and are actually very bright children.
That's very descriptive of both killers in this episode.
That's how the last killer was.
Pinpoint, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Sharon Carr.
Right. So with this imagery of the slugs came an obsession. He began collecting slugs and killing them. He'd put them under heat lamps and just watch them wriggle and squirm in pain until they died. And then he'd cut them open and dissect them to see what they looked like inside. This obsession grew to bigger animals, of course. Frogs was next. He liked that their organs were very similar to ours. And that really fascinated him. Not long after his grandmother passed away, his dog died too. Oh. And this was just too much for him to take. A day or two after his dog died, he saw a stray cat eating out of his dead dog's food bowl that someone had accidentally left out on the porch. He lost it. He instantly killed that cat. At first, he killed the cat out of anger. But as he was killing it, trigger warning, as he saw the blood and the gore and what he did, this elementary school boy said that he got quote unquote sexual gratification from this.
Jesus.
He then dissected the cat and got even more aroused by it.
Oh, that's terrible.
Now, as a young boy, this child is experiencing what a lot of serial killers that we mentioned on the show experience, this sadistic sexualization of murder. And he's just a child.
Yeah, sadosexual killers, I think, are born, not made, for the most part.
Something has to be physically wrong with their brain. Because it does seem like something that overtakes him that he can't control.
Yes.
Now, another trigger warning, it's just gross. After his grandmother's passing, he's still living in the house where she lived, right? He starts going through her things, and he stumbles across his grandmother's sex toy. He takes this toy to her gravesite and uses it on regular occasions.
On himself.
On himself.
Oh, my God. Yeah, something ain't right.
Regularly, he does this.
Yeah, something's definitely not right at all.
As he began to sexualize murder, he'd go on to kill more and more animals, cats, dogs, frogs, pigeons, anything that he could get his hands on. He'd run them over with his bicycle, or he would grab them and take them home to dissect them. The more he killed, the more antisocial he became. And he was a loner throughout school and preferred to speak as little as humanly possible, continually fixating on murder. He later said, quote, "When I advanced to junior high school, I had already become bored of killing cats and gradually found myself fantasizing about what it would be like to murder human beings like me."
God.
On February 10th, 1997, in Kobe around 4 p.m., he saw 2 middle school-aged girls walking down the street and began chasing after them. With him, he had a hammer. He attacked them both with this hammer before running off, leaving them both badly injured. One was in a really, really terrible shape. They later were able to actually survive and explain to their parents that the person that attacked them was a boy, a student with a backpack wearing a school uniform. But a month later, in March, Sakibara was walking down the street at a park, carrying this hammer again, when he saw a young girl named Ayaka Yamashita, who was about 10 years old. She was just sitting at the park by herself. He approached her. He asked her if she could show him to a nearby restroom so he could wash his hands. So she did. She led him to a nearby school, and when they got there, he said, quote, "Could you turn around? I would like to show you my thanks." Now, this must be a custom I'm unaware of because this seemed very normal to her. So she turned around, and as she did, he struck her over the head with the hammer and ran away. Ayaka was in critical condition, barely alive when she was found. She was rushed to the hospital where she later died of cerebral contusion.
Oh, baby.
10 years old.
That's terrible.
That night, excuse me, he journaled about this murder, saying, quote, "I carried out a sacred experiment today to confirm how fragile human beings are. I brought the hammer down when this girl turned her face to me. I think I hit her a few times, but I was too excited to remember." He later wrote, quote, "This morning my mom told me, 'Poor girl, the girl who was attacked seemed to have died. There is no sign of me being caught. I thank you, God,'" sorry, this is a silly word, "God Bemaduki, for this. Please continue to protect me." And I say that's a strange word because he made it up. It is a god that he made up.
Okay.
Yeah. And in his journal, he has a drawing of this god, and it looks like the floating head of a Buddha, but with tentacles in the shape of a swastika, which, of course, in Buddhism is not the same thing as the journal.
No.
The German.
No.
I think it's a peace symbol or something like that. But anyways, this was his god, apparently, that he prayed to. Soon after this, he attacked another young schoolgirl, this time with a knife. He slashed her deep across the stomach. She survived, but had to spend weeks in the hospital due to the severity of her injuries. In May of that year, Sakibara escalated even further.
My God.
It's just one after the other.
Like, I don't know, like, I guess, again, just like in the case of Sharon Carr, they're not really expecting
a child.
Mm-hmm. Although, I mean, the witnesses that survive, I'm sure, tell them, but I wonder how seriously the police took it. You know?
Well, and I mean, it's Kobe. Like, how many small children
lots
are there? Yeah.
There's lots.
There's lots of school districts. There's lots of schools, lots of children. Mm-hmm. So saying it's one schoolboy without like a complete description.
Yeah, exactly.
So he ended up walking down a path in a forest where he came across a young boy, this time someone he knew. The boy's name was June Haas. He was 11 years old. He had just left his house, telling his parents he was going to walk down the street to his grandparents' house. Sakibara was June's friend's older brother, so when their two paths crossed, Sakibara considered this fate. June had always been very kind and very friendly to Sakibara. Of course, he liked that about him, but he also didn't trust it. He knew that June was only nice to him because he didn't know who he really was deep down inside, and if he ever found out, June would have been disgusted.
Yeah, he wouldn't have been friends with him anymore.
No, because June was a very sweet boy. So he thought then and there, June had to die. He lured him away from the path, saying that there was this really cool blue turtle over here. Just look, it's right here. Right off the path, Sakibara strangled and decapitated June. He hid his body, and he took the head home with him. There at his house, he did stuff to the head. That's all I'm going to say.
Sexual stuff, I'm assuming.
He said things worse than murder. So, that night, June's parents reported him missing after he didn't show up at his grandfather's house, and a search ensued, but it was too late. The next day, Sakibara took the severed head to the elementary school and placed it at the front gate.
Oh my God.
He also scattered several mutilated cats all around the severed head, which helped police actually because they had found numerous other slain and mutilated cats, not just throughout the city, but also next to the other bodies that were found. He later wrote in his journal, quote, "Let me confess something. I thought it was a sight of beauty. I felt like I was born just to see the ethereal beauty that was in front of my eyes. I thought I could die."
Oh my God.
Inside the mouth of the boy's head, he left a rolled up letter written in red addressed to the police that read, quote, "This is the beginning of a game. You police guys, stop me if you can. I desperately want to see people die. It is a thrill for me to commit murder. A bloody judgment is needed for my years of great bitterness." Further on, he wrote, quote, "Now it's the beginning of a game." The letter stated that I'm putting my own life at stake for the sake of this game. If I'm caught, I'll probably be hanged. Police should be angrier and more tenacious in pursuing me. It's only when I kill that I am liberated from the constant hatred that I suffer and that I am able to obtain peace. It is only when I give pain to people that I can erase my own pain. He blamed the school system's strict teachings on why he was lashing out, but we all know that that was not true. He had these fantasies long before he even started school. His mother was super strict, but, that just wasn't it. Something was very clearly wrong with him. He also wrote in English at the bottom of the page, "Schul killer." He misspelled school killer. And he signed it with a symbol very much like the Zodiac killer. So he was really trying to emulate the Zodiac killer.
Yeah, clearly.
It was also here at the bottom of the page that he signed Sakibara Seito, which is a combination of kanji that means, quote, alcohol, devil, rose, saint, and fight, which is
a lot.
So cringy. It's like he's 14 and he's just really, really, really trying to be as edgy as humanly possible with that. So he had kind of made up this name with the combination of those words. This letter was presented to the public, but they misread the name and pronounced it Onibara instead. Apparently,
that means demon. Oni does.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know that, but apparently they misread the first symbol of Sakibara, and it was either smudged or overlooked or something, so they mispronounced the rest of the word without that first sound. And because of that, on June 6th, he sent a 3-page, 1,400-word letter to this in the same red ink to the local newspaper called Kobe Shinbun. He confessed everything that he did to June and said, quote, From now on, if you misread my name or spoil my mood, I will kill 3 vegetables a week. If you think I can only kill children, you are greatly mistaken.
Oh, that's so scary.
Isn't it terrifying?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. He's being edgy, but like,
no,
he meant it.
He's fucked. Like,
yeah, there's something wrong.
Clearly. Sakibara was known to the community and local police as the little boy who killed cats. They also knew that June and him knew each other. June was seen oftentimes visiting his house, hanging out with his brother. So it didn't take long for the police to connect the two to him. By June of that year, Sakibara was arrested and taken into the station. There he confessed to not only the murder of June, but also the murder of the girl in the park, Ayaka, and also the attacks on the other girls. Many people speculated that it couldn't be him, not just because of his age, but also he not only claimed all of the brutal attacks, but he also had like these very grandiose ways of describing what he did and adding details that just weren't possibly true at all. So, they thought, well, this guy's like definitely making this up.
Going on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And initially, during the investigations, police thought that the killer was left-handed, and Sakibara's teacher let them know that he was actually right-handed. So they thought, based on this fact alone, it couldn't
he was just
be
making
him.
Shit up. Yeah,
exactly. Especially because you also see a lot of like really sick and twisted children and young adults trying to
take credit for shit.
Yes.
Yeah, you see it in the U.S. system a lot.
Yes. And also, his age was a concern. People don't like to believe that children can be this brutal. But when his mother came to visit him, she straight up asked him point blank if he murdered those children, and he told her, yes, I did. When they searched his room, they found stacks of manga and porn. And of course, the media took this and ran with it because manga is, it can be very violent. And because of this, local officials tried to push more restrictions on violent content and pornography, essentially blaming these things on the reasons why Sakibara did what he did, instead of the other way around. Sakibara had those items because of the things that he did and wanted to continue doing. It was a way to satiate his killings in between killings.
Jesus.
But really, people wanted to like hang on to that, like they do with video games and anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So in October of that year, he was sent to what's called a special reform program for children, basically a reformatory, essentially what you would think of as like a mental hospital for the criminally insane, but for children, and definitely not like what we have in the United States. This is a very nice facility that he was sent to. He received psychiatric treatment and therapy until they thought he was ready to be sent to a more of a clinic setting to receive additional therapy to help him with social skills, to reintegrate him to society. But he was eventually sent right back to the reformatory because of his mental state. Because of his age and the severity of his crimes, in 2000, they lowered the age of criminal responsibility in Japan from 16 to 14. Now, they couldn't charge him as an adult, but it furthered any other cases for children his age.
I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest with you.
It's rough, and it is a major topic of this episode. Yeah, for sure.
We're going to run into it again.
This month is going to be heavy on that one. But yeah, that was after his conviction. He was still tried as a minor, and on March 11th of 2004, he was released into the wild, into society, after only 6.5 years of reformatory. At 21 years old, he'd go on to basically fight all of his inner demons constantly, everywhere he went. The police kept his name out of the media, but they did announce his release, not stating where exactly he was going. They tried to make sure that he was released in a very small town, in a small community, so that way he could, not have so many outside stressors that could possibly trigger him.
I would not want to be anywhere near that guy.
No. Police also tracked his movements and would check back in with the victims' families from time to time and update them as far as where his movements were and his whereabouts. His parole only lasted about 1.5 years, and then he no longer had to report to anyone. He kind of just fell off the map. No one knows where he is now, and that's just terrifying.
My God.
He stayed hiding until he released an autobiography in 2015, which he talked in extreme detail about all of the gruesome crimes that he had committed. But as far as where he is today and what he's currently doing, it's unknown. Potential sightings happen all the time, often. There's lots of pictures floating around online of like, is this him? Do you think this is him? June's father tried to stop his book from being released, but it was. But many bookstores actually refused to sell it. Allegedly, Sakibara promised to use the money from the book sales to pay back the victims' families for what he did. But of course, he took the money and run, and he hasn't been seen since. He did have a website for a short amount of time. I think it only lasted a few months, but it was right after his book release. He created this website, and now if you type in the website's name, which I cannot pronounce like a full sentence in Japanese, but if you were to type in the website today, it actually, since it's been taken down, it now redirects to the Prime Minister's office, which I just...
It's a little weird.
Wow. Wow. So the translation for the website is, quote, "the transparency of an existence I can't stand. .biz."
Okay. The .biz got me a bit.
So it contained an overly detailed biography, as well as listed his exact height and weight and blood type. I don't know why, but this would help police if he ever committed a crime later on.
I think it's a cultural thing. I know that like in manga and anime and stuff, like the characters' blood types, like they even make those and stuff.
Really?
And
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's
it's in like fan magazines and stuff. I don't know. Like for video games.
He does exalt himself on a very high pedestal, so it would make sense that was almost like a boast.
Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit.
Okay. This website also had all kinds of drawings of slug creatures that he would doodle and sketch out. And really wild photoshops. I will post these.
Okay.
I will.
I need to see them.
They are, okay. So they're his body photoshopped onto various creatures, or vice versa, creatures photoshopped onto him. There's one, I think it was even in a magazine. It's a naked profile of him, and this like slug-like creature is his penis, and it's weird. There's one that's like super famous because it got all over the internet. It's like almost like a centaur rendition of him with his like buff nude torso on a scorpion body. And he has his face covered with this like black face covering that has like this like bright white symbol on it. And it's something.
That is something.
It's something. So yeah, I'm glad that we don't know where he is now. I hope he's not out there hurting anyone else. Ayaka's mother later stated, quote, "I have not forgiven his crimes, but I think that Ayaka would hope that the man redeems himself, gains a human heart, and lives a good life. Every time incidents involving children happen, I feel that we must question ourselves about what we adults are here for."
Okay. Well, why didn't you earlier?
I mean, her daughter was just sitting at the park.
Oh, that was the mother of Ayaka. Okay, sorry, I'm a stupid idiot.
Not his mother.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was tons of signs that...
Well, that's awfully nice of her to say.
Right.
I don't think that's what I'd be saying.
No, and I think that... I mean, I don't think that she wants to say that. I think that that's something that she thinks her daughter would want. And...
my vengeful ass would never feel like that.
No.
I'd be like, kill him.
No. But this leads us to the next case, which is the Nevada Tan case, also known as the Sasebo slashing, since it took place in Sasebo, Nagasaki, Japan. Now, Nevada Tan was only 11 years old when the crime was committed. So just like in the previous case, her real birth name was never released to the public. At least it was eventually, but it was by accident. She was initially referred to as Girl A, but the media dubbed her Nevada Tan, and we'll later see why. But for the sake of this episode, I'm going to call her Nevada Tan because it's confusing otherwise. So not much is known about her upbringing either. She was active and very happy and made a lot of friends growing up. She did reportedly get along well with her parents, though she apparently didn't speak very much to them, much like the Sakibara case. She kind of just stuck to like one-word answers as much as possible and just really didn't want to talk very much. But for the most part, it seemed like she was the perfect daughter at first. She was involved in sports and loved art and was the top in her class. It was actually reported that her IQ was 140. So she was considered a genius. But eventually her grades started to slip. So Nevada's parents did what my parents would have done, which a lot of parents do, is they took her out of the extracurricular activities until her grades came back up, which meant she had to quit basketball. And this pissed her off. That's where all of her friends were. You know, that was her main social event, was basketball and basketball practice. So now, with nothing to do besides stay in her room and study, she became reclusive. And because with basketball, she was surrounded by her friends, now she just has herself and her computer. So we're talking early 2000s internet.
Place was like the wild fucking West.
This is 2004.
Yeah, it was scary back then.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
You could find any old thing.
You could, and she did. She really did. Yeah, so, yeah, back when basically anybody could code websites themselves, Nevada Tan did that exact same thing. She built her own website on a site called Cafeta, and it was essentially like a journal, kind of like Zanga or MySpace.
Zanga, I bet you had one.
I did. I actually got kicked out of a private school for my Zanga profile picture of me flipping off the camera. It's just awful. Anyway, so on this platform, you created your own avatar instead of creating a profile photo, and it was like a big deal to create these avatars. I think it was like several layers in, and so it was, I don't know, everybody's avatar was very specific. And, you know, you could share photos, you could write up journal blogs and things like, it was basically a blog. Now, her full page was nothing but gore. She had started watching as much anime and horror as she could, specifically a movie called Battle Royale. Do you know about this one?
Oh, yes, I have seen it.
I figured. It's also a manga.
Yeah, I only saw the movie. It was like in the early 2000s. It went around, you know, and friends and stuff.
I've heard of it.
Have you seen this movie?
I've never watched it.
I don't know what Japan's like.
Do you want to describe what the movie is? Or do you
Yeah, okay. So, like, all these, like, I believe it's high school age students are, like, shipped to an island or something, and they all have to fight to the death.
And they're given a bunch of weapons, and it's really gory.
Yes, and it was kind of like inspiration for Kill Bill and many other movies.
I also heard The Hunger Games. I've never seen that movie either.
Well, it was a book by Suzanne Collins. I know Will was really obsessed with Suzanne Collins back in the day. But yeah, it was like a Hunger Games, but instead of being hungry, they were like delinquents, and they had to like kill each other.
Well, and again, I've never seen Hunger Games, but I'm told that like the people in Hunger Games didn't necessarily know each other, and these students did.
Yes, they did. But it reminds me too, like that's not these battle games, like where kids all murder each other, is like a subgenre over there. Like
right, because there was
Danganronpa is like a game.
I was about to say that, yeah, because that was in the Yandere Freak case.
Yes, and my middle child was really into that. So you mean even as a parent, even if your kid is into that stuff, you can't like knee jerk it because it's usually harmless.
I mean, 99.9% of people who indulge in that content would not
never
go out and
even
murder
step
anyone.
on a flea.
Most of them sleep with a pile of plushies.
Val does sleep with a pile of plushies. That is correct.
So yeah. So I mean, it's understandable that there wasn't that many red flags.
No,
at least at the beginning. And this is where her obsession with gore and horror really started to take form. She decided she wanted to be a manga author and began writing her own manga on her page. Essentially the same storyline as Battle Royale, only the characters in her story resembled her classmates.
Ooh, big yikes.
And she would describe in detail how each one of her classmates, I assume that she put them under different names, but you could tell who each one was. She would describe in detail how they were murdered.
Oof.
And excitement, yeah. So her website became her escape, essentially.
Her inner world.
Her identity.
Yeah.
Absolutely. She took this very seriously. Extremely. And remember, she's like 10 or 11 at this time. And with that came the bullies. Her classmates flocked to her page and would leave her all kinds of comments about her and the things that she posted. Even one of her best friends was commenting hateful things, and this is what really set her off. Satomi Miturari. I'm just going to say Satomi because I'm stumbling over her last name. Satomi and Nevada had been pretty much best friends for a while. They kind of grew up together. They were in the same class. They played basketball together, and they hung out all the time. At first, when Satomi and Nevada were, super friendly online when she very first made her page, they were complimenting each other, commenting very nice things to each other. They were messaging each other constantly. But at one point, while they were hanging out, I believe this happened at school, Nevada ended up jumping on Satomi's back jokingly as if to get a piggyback ride. But Satomi was very small. And, so was Nevada. But Satomi, when Nevada jumped on her back, she said, "Ow, you're really heavy." And Nevada jumped off and was like, "Hey, that's rude," basically thinking that she was calling her fat.
Yeah, there is if you think fat phobia is bad here,
yeah,
it is super bad in Japan.
And these girls are very thin, but Nevada specifically was very concerned with her weight.
Yeah, because it is drilled into you. And it's so sad because I'm going to be brave and say there is nothing morally wrong with being fat or eating food.
Absolutely not.
So if you're listening and you're a chunker yourself, as am I, I love you. You're fine. And don't let things like that hurt you.
Jiggles and wiggles are fun.
Yeah, we squishy.
They're comfy. But yeah, so after this, Satomi would leave mean comments on Nevada's page, comments about her weight, and as well as other snide remarks here and there. Nevada was extremely hurt, but she was also furious. She demanded an apology from Satomi, but she refused. So now the two friends became sworn enemies, complete rivals. They started attacking each other on Cafesta. They knew each other's passwords because they had helped each other set up their sites. And so they would go onto each other's pages and delete comments and fuck with each other.
Mean stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Satomi ended up deleting some comments from Nevada, and then Nevada ended up going on there and deleting her avatar, which was like, oh, that was a big deal. And it became like just a war, essentially, between the two of them. And the more Nevada stewed about her hatred of her now ex-best friend, the more she became mean and cold to pretty much anyone around her. She actually became the bully this time. Nevada started getting into fights at school, being mean to her parents and her teachers, and her parents didn't know what to do to help her. They thought that maybe she was lashing out because of basketball. They had no idea that she was even arguing with her friend, much less full-on fighting with people. So they enrolled her back into basketball. But this is the exact same team that she played with Satomi on. So she pretty much showed up at the first practice and she was like, nah, and she left and she quit the basketball team pretty much immediately. So she went back to her room and she decided to keep herself busy with her blog and her horror films. Her next obsession was a show called the Monday Mystery Theater. Do you know which this show is?
I don't think so.
I feel like I've heard of it. I feel like I might have seen some clips of it, but it's essentially like, it's similar to NCIS. It's similar to CSI.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Like a crime drama.
It's a crime drama, yeah. But this one is gory, like extremely, extremely gory. And the murders in this show were all done with box cutters. And Nevada clung on to this detail. She started carrying a box cutter with her and actually got in trouble for threatening a boy at school with it. But she was just talked to, nothing was done, and she didn't really get into any trouble or anything. She was just sent back to class. A week later, Satome left another mean comment on Nevada's blog. And a few days after this, on June 1st, 2004, at lunchtime, Nevada told Satome that she needed to show her something. She was like, hey, come here quick. Come look at this. She led her into an empty classroom and told her to sit down, which she did. Huge trigger warning for the events ahead. She reportedly told Satome, quote, today you are going to die. But Satome didn't believe her. She probably thought that she was being dramatic or something, but she wasn't. Nevada then told her to cover her eyes, offering her a handkerchief, but Satome refused that as well. So Nevada covered her eyes with one hand. From behind, took out a box cutter with the other hand.
Ooh, shit.
And in one solid motion, slit Satome's throat from behind. She watched the blood flow for a second, and then Satome realized what had just happened, and she kind of began to struggle. So Nevada acted quickly and deeply slashed Satome's wrists clear to the bone.
Oh, God.
She sat there and just watched as Satome bled to death, basically. Blood just pooled everywhere. And eventually, when she quit moving, Nevada calmly stood up and left Satome there, walked out of the classroom, down the hallway, and then stood in the doorway of her classroom in front of her teacher and all of her students, holding this box cutter covered in blood. Just standing there, staring. At first, the teacher was in complete shock. She thought that Nevada was covered in her own blood and that she had possibly injured herself with the box cutter. So she rushed over to her. She checked over her, like looking for injuries or anything, but Nevada just stood there staring forward. She calmly said, "This isn't my blood. It's not me." And then she slowly pointed in the direction of the room down the hall where she left Satome and said calmly, "I've done something bad."
That's just really scary. That is some horror movie shit. That would scar me for life.
Everybody that witnessed this has PTSD.
Well, obviously.
The teacher had just done roll call, and so she knew that both Nevada and Satome were unaccounted for. So she rushed out of the door in the direction that Nevada had pointed. Nevada actually ended up following the teacher, still covered in blood, still gripping this box cutter, followed the teacher, just bawling her eyes out, leading her to the room where Satome was. There she found Satome slumped in a chair, drenched in blood pooling all around her, all over the walls and the surrounding area. The teacher tried to stop the bleeding, but it was already too late. Satome was still breathing at this time, but barely. The teachers and other students down the hallways heard this teacher's screams and rushed to the scene. Satome died there in her teacher's arms and was pronounced dead from blood loss at the scene by the medics. The cut on her neck was reportedly 10 centimeters deep and 10 centimeters wide.
God.
All the way across the front of her neck.
Blah, blah, blah.
And yeah, every single student, teacher, and medic, and several of the police officers, pretty much everybody that witnessed this scene, experienced severe trauma, severe PTSD, and had to have extensive therapy because of what they saw this day.
Yeah, you don't want to see a little girl all cut up like that. That'd be terrible.
Absolutely not. So each of the grades at the school were sent home one by one, while the 6th graders were kept for questioning. They had to get some sort of information about the relationship between the girls and the events leading up to the attack. Police arrived pretty much immediately at the scene and escorted Nevada to the police station. Just like the previous case, had changed the criminal responsibility age to 14. Since she was 11, she was clearly a minor and underage to be arrested. They would eventually try to get the age lowered to 11. But
my God.
That was not,
yeah, that's not going to fly.
Mm-mm. So when she was taken in for questioning, Nevada was in a state of shock. she just kept rocking back and forth, apologizing, saying over and over and over again, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. She admitted to killing Satome, but she wouldn't say why. She refused to eat or drink that night and basically just stayed up all night silently, just staring. But the next day, being the little girl that she was, she did finally accept a small meal that they gave her. And after she ate it, she did end up opening up to police about the incident. She told them that, that her friend had commented these things on her page and that it had basically started a fight between the two of them. And that after the last comment that she had made, she stewed over that 4-day period of exactly how she was going to kill Satome. So this is more than just premeditated. Like, this is a well thought out plan.
Yeah.
She told them about the TV shows and movies that she had watched that had given her the idea of using a box cutter, which would also, be a big deal in the media. Mm-hmm. She also told them about something called the Red Room Theory or the Red Room Curse. Do you know about this?
I know what a red room is on, like, the dark web, but I don't think I know what those are.
Right, like a red room on the dark web would be like a live streaming room.
Or you kill someone. Yeah.
Or torture someone, but yeah, mostly it's for live killings.
Sickos, yeah.
Yeah. It's a Japanese urban legend, very similar to Bloody Mary, where this red pop-up box comes online if you go on to certain websites. And this red pop-up box has a letter in it. And one by one, as you click out of it, each letter pops up and it ends up spelling out, "Do you like the red room?" Which apparently, if you read the full sentence after the very last letter pops up, you die. Essentially painting your room in blood red.
Oh, okay. It sounds a lot like The Ring, the plot of The Ring, If you see the
very
video
much
in
like
7
that, or
days,
Slender
you die.
Man.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a combination of a lot of those.
And people do not, maybe people who are either too old or too young, don't remember the, like, weirdness of all that kind of shit that was popular in the early 2000s.
I believed in Bloody Mary 1,000%.
Well, that's really old. That was, like, from my childhood even.
Yes.
But, like, stuff like Slender Man and all that stuff, y'all, it was so popular and so prevalent in the early 2000s.
I was a little too old for Slender Man, but yeah.
Oh, my kids were into it, and I did not get it. I was like, this is dumb, but y'all knock yourselves out.
Right. But yeah, a lot of kids really believed in this Red Room curse. And because of Nevada's confession that the horror films and their internet thrills like tied basically with all of the mean commenting and the bullying.
Oh, they're just going to blame the internet so hard.
Yeah. It was almost like our version of the Satanic Panic, but it was more, graphic content, essentially. And this really started getting things banned left and right. And parents started really to crack down on their children's gore consumption and things like that. Satome's father was a reporter for the local newspaper. He was called to the scene and actually ended up seeing his daughter in that state.
Oh, God, that's so terrible.
He said, quote, "I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I couldn't put into words what I'm feeling right now. I can't understand it at all. I don't have a clue." Satome's mother had passed away from cancer just a few years prior. So on top of that, he lost his daughter in that way.
In such a horrific way.
And his daughter was literally the centerpiece, the light of his life. She was the youngest and she was just his baby. So he lost everything that day.
I can't imagine that. It's so terrible.
For the end of the school year graduation ceremony, Satome's father was presented with her graduation certificate.
Oh, it's so pitiful.
The rest of the elementary school students were given a graduation album to put pictures of Satome in, and if they wanted to, Nevada Tan as well. The day of the murder was actually school picture day. So the school pictures were taken like maybe an hour before the murders took place. So those photos were the main photos that were used of Nevada Tan. And I say that she's wearing a sweatshirt that says Nevada. It's from Nevada State University. So that's where she got the name Nevada Tan, because those were the images that the media saw.
Right.
And then
I figured it was something like that.
Tan is a shortened version of Chan, which means like cute little girl. So that's where you get the name Nevada Tan. Her real name was actually revealed to the public not long after the story broke. The media had posted photos of some of her manga drawings, and
Had she signed them?
she had signed them.
Yeah.
And I don't think they noticed that her signature was at the bottom. But of course, people who were latching onto the story, they noticed, and the internet noticed.
The armchair detectives will always notice.
Absolutely. So it came out that her signature read Tsuchi Natsumi, but by this point, Nevada Tan had already
Caught on.
Yeah, so it didn't take long for that name to be forgotten. She became an internet sensation. Images were made of her in manga style as a little girl in a Nevada sweater, wild-eyed and covered in blood. Now, this particular photo is what not only drew me to this case, but I had seen this photo for years. So I almost felt like I knew the case without actually knowing the case because this image was so sensationalized across the internet.
I'm looking it up because I think I know which one you're talking about. And yep, I have seen that before a million times.
Absolutely. It's almost iconic at this point. And so much so that like people still to this day dress up as her for Halloween.
That is tasteless and disgusting.
So many people were dressing up as her that the University of Nevada, as well as the company that supplied the t-shirt, discontinued the t-shirt for a large amount of time because they just couldn't feed into this. She essentially became a folk legend, especially on 4chan and all of the other channels. And this case was actually taken to family court because of her age. She ended up being sent to a reformatory just like the last case, only this time she was sent for 2 years initially. During that time, she was seen by psychiatrists and diagnosed with Asperger's or autism. Because of this diagnosis, she was sentenced to an additional 2 more years.
And just to break in...
I wanted you to say this.
Yes,
go
I always will.
I know.
It was called that back in the early 2000s, but a Nazi made it up,
It's
so
not real.
no thank you.
It's not real.
Just autism.
Now, if your child was diagnosed with autism, I'm not going to discredit your child. I just don't believe in this Nazi.
No, it's just the name of it. If your child was diagnosed with Asperger's, it just means they're autistic.
Yes,
That's all it means.
Yeah.
And we don't say things like high functioning, low functioning. That ain't nice. Instead, nowadays, they stage autism, meaning there's autism stage 1, 2, and 3. Mm-hmm. So there we go.
I love to inform people on autism.
Me too.
Yes.
Because we all ed up with it over her.
Yes, we are.
ed up with the tism.
Absolutely. So, yeah, she only served 4 years in a reformatory.
Well, I mean, what do you do? She's how old was she? 11. What do you do?
I know what the U.S. would do, and it wouldn't be that.
Well, I'm not saying where it should be.
I'm
like
not
that.
saying nothing about the United
We're the
States.
example of what not to do frequently with our justice system.
Aren't we, textbook? So on May 29th of 2008, she was released to her parents on house arrest. Then in 2013, when she turned 20, which was the legal adult age at the time, she was off house arrest and able to go back into society where her family ended up relocating and going off the map, and nobody knows where she is today.
Now, while I think the child is definitely, well, not a child anymore, but she was definitely disturbed, I don't know if she's as dangerous as the first kid.
No.
Seem more personal.
Yeah, and she showed remorse.
Exactly. She was crying and saying she was sorry.
Extreme remorse. I'm sure that event traumatized her just as much as everybody else that witnessed it that day.
Yeah, I try and have empathy for them both. It's just hard for the first guy and it's not a lack of empathy. It's just, that's dangerous. That's a dangerous person.
That person has some severe mental issues because he did state that the rest of his life, he could not get the images of that decapitation out of his mind. And the other things that he did to people, he just couldn't get it out of his mind. He was so sexually fixated on it that I'm sorry.
It just really grosses
me out. It really does too. And so I do wonder if he did ever commit other crimes under different names or, whatever, but we never will know. Both of those people are in hiding. I hope they didn't harm anyone else. But the fact that they both have different names and different aliases that they go by makes them even more, anonymous out there in the world.
A little creepy, not gonna lie.
It's very terrifying. It really is.
But what's not creepy is business time. Yeah. It was a good transition. That one felt good. I slid in like on a slip and slide, coat of vegetable oil, just whoop right in there.
Greased up.
Gracie. All right. So I don't want to have too much business time because it's a long episode and Mama tired.
Yeah.
Mama was scared.
Yeah.
Now I got a headache from being scared and my tummy hurts and I have to lay down now. But basically we have a Patreon where we will do an additional episode every week. We do things that way.
We do things.
God.
We also have stuff
and things, but no, seriously, go check it out, especially if you want to see case photos. Those are all public posts. We're not our pictures, not gonna make you pay for them. That's weird.
And y'all, it's cold. Well, it's getting cold. It was kind of warm today, but it's getting cold. Y'all should warm up with some merch.
You should
Go we
check
have
it
the
out.
Softest hoodies.
They are really nice.
You know you love hoodies, and they go up to some good sizes. Like they're pretty much for every size.
Don't borrow your man's hoodie.
Please.
Go get your own.
You'll love them. I also have the long sleeve t-shirt because I really like the sleeves on that one too.
Oh yes, they're very soft. So I've had my
size appropriate.
I've had my t-shirt now for like a year and a half.
My design is perfect. As if the day that I pulled it out of the mailbox.
And if it wasn't, we would already have moved to different.
We actually released our merch a year ago as of yesterday.
It was a year ago?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so I've had it a year.
Yeah.
I don't know how long anything is.
Well, we released the merch a year ago. I don't know if we personally got our merch a year ago.
Oh, no, it would have been sooner because I tried the place out first.
Okay.
Yeah.
I waited a few weeks because I couldn't afford it.
No, a lovely listener bought mine because I too couldn't afford it because we suck. Yeah. But that's okay. It's okay to suck.
It's appreciated that people help us out.
And we
you
have
really good to us.
We have a couple designs. They're mostly the same, but
we got new ones. A couple months ago we got the
brain of soup because it is. Boy,
yep.
I've had soup brain real bad. I don't know about y'all. Soup brain can mean two things here, just so we're clear. One is that it's soup season, and all you're thinking about is soup.
Oh, that's a good one. I didn't think about that.
Soup thieving.
I love soup.
We love soup. And then the other one is that there's no thoughts, only soup in there, rattling around in your skull. No brain, just liquid. You're not doing
brain.
well. That's
not even wrinkles. No thoughts.
Just soupy.
Soup brain.
Soup brain. My brain.
So you guys, if you get any merch, cups,
please take a picture of yourself in it, and don't be shy. I hate when you're shy. Please don't.
Please send us selfies. When the merch first dropped, everybody flocked, got a bunch of stuff, sent us some selfies, but then we didn't get any more. So you should do that.
And listen, the merch sales have been fine.
Yeah.
So I know y'all got them out there.
We see you guys buying them.
Obviously.
And we'll post your pictures on our Instagram. We have a special section in the highlights.
And if you don't want your face on there,
then fine.
Fine.
Just put an emoji over it or something if you want.
Put a big middle
we'd
finger.
Like to share
I don't
you.
care. Yeah. Yeah. I'm making it weird. Also,
you share us, we'll share you.
Okay, now you're making it too weird. Also, I have a few bars of soap left. Get them. Get them
smell
now.
so good.
Yes, they do.
Oh my goodness.
And listen, y'all, the 40% off does count mystery boxes too. And when I say I load them up, like it's 5 to 6 pounds of stuff. Like it's a lot. It's a lot. And you're gonna want it. Trust me. It's got lotion.
It's so good for your skin too.
It really is. My lotion is legit. It is legit. Speaking of, I owe you some lotion.
I know. Every time I come over here, you forget to give it to me.
Or you forget to ask me to give it to you.
I
So
always
it's your
forget to
fault. Because I'm never wrong. Other than that, if all you can do to support this podcast is listen, please know how much we appreciate it and you. The podcast is for you, after all. I don't listen to it. Because that would be stupid.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I used to obsessively listen at the beginning because I wanted to micro critique myself.
Oh, that was annoying when you did that.
Yeah, but then I couldn't do that anymore. And
I told you to fucking quit.
And I did.
I was like, would you fucking stop?
Yeah.
It's already out there.
Yeah.
It's too late.
No, I'm glad I got over the initial fear.
Y'all don't even know.
Imposter syndrome.
You don't even know.
We went through a
I've
whole
been
year of
through.
imposter syndrome, the both of us.
Look, I have imposter syndrome because let's face facts.
She's a badass artist.
No, I am a bag of garbage. I am a goblin creature. I'm a possum. I don't know. I'm a cockroach. Cockroach.
She's also a badass artist and an extremely talented person.
Well, fine, whatever. But like anytime I do anything and somebody's like, I like this, I was like, I have tricked you. But I just, I just keep going because there's nothing I can do.
You have worked
about
hard,
it.
you have studied, and you have accomplished things. You study everything that you do.
Yes, too much. Too much.
You saw a mountain lion and studied every single mountain lion habit.
They are now my enemy, and I must defeat them.
Yep.
I don't want to hurt them because I think they're majestic and cool, but I also don't want me or my pet to get eaten.
I'm so scared to walk home.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Mm-hmm. All right, well, I'm going to go away now.
Pray for us and the mountain lions.
Yeah, just think nice thoughts of safety or something. Fuck, I don't know. Anyway, goodbye.
Bye.
Us on your social media platform of choice. Linktree/cruelty has all of the links. Check out our Patreon for exclusive episodes, merch, ad-free episodes, live ghost hunts, and much more. Please be sure to subscribe. New episodes are uploaded weekly. Thank you so much. See you next time. Music and production by Libby.